Hey everyone, I am trying to write. I am also listening to myself on that. There we go. Alright, I'm trying to write a one-shot called Kobold Get It. That's a working title. The idea will be that our little clutch of kobolds for the Trans Lifeline charity stream need to go off and steal back some treasure from an evil being who stole it from them. This is probably going to happen after a battle, and their boss is going to, there's going to be a raid on their compound, and they just, won this big victory and, stole all these good golden gubbins, and then they get the gubbins stolen away from them by someone else. And, I'm trying to figure out how to extend this into a 3.5 hour or so one-shot for 5 players. I'm using a bit of a what are they called? I'm stealing a little bit from myself in a scenario I did in a campaign recently, because I'm using a Gouth. I love Gouths because they're baby beholders. They're like little low-level beholders. We can bring up their stats here real quick. As kind of the end boss, this is going to be a level 5 one-shot, and Gouths are challenge rating 6, so he's going to have a couple buddies with him to help even things out. But they have eye rays. They just don't have. They're just not as nasty. They have enough hit points, especially if there's going to be some extra folk with them. And a couple of the hallmarks I want for this game is I want it to be funny. I want it to be something that kind of makes the characters laugh and have a good time. Which we're playing kobolds, so that's going to be pretty great. And if they can't latch onto that as being inherently hilarious, I don't know what is. And B, kind of have a bit of a heisty vibe to it, right? Where they're trying to steal back stuff that's been stolen from them. I know where the game ends, and I know where the game begins, and that's kind of how I start writing all of my scenarios, right? Is what's our inciting incident, and what's the big bad look like, and then I kind of try and fill in the middle with interesting stuff for them to do, and sort of try and figure out ways to keep them entertained in essentially this chase to try and figure out what the heck happened to their boss's gold. And I want to try and force a decision on them, because I'm going to drop a hint at the beginning of the one-shot, I think, where the reason that their boss, who I'm calling Snicked Grubbly Bits, the kobold is their boss, she is boss because she had this pretty circlet. I'm not quite sure what it actually is yet, but right now I'm calling it a gold circlet. It could just be like a trash can or something. But it was kind of the symbol of power amongst this tribe of kobolds. And it was stolen too. And so, should they be able to steal that back? Do they fight with each other over who will be the new king? Do they stay loyal to Snicked? What do they do? I want to force a choice there at the end, just to kind of see how they deal with it. The beginning of the game currently is there's our adventurers have just come back from a successful battle against a tribe of hobgoblins who were attempting to take over this set of kobolds' holdings. And the kobolds won the fight. And the player character's clutch, which is a 10 kobold group of fighters in a battle, was instrumental in that victory in some way. And I'm going to ask the characters to define how they were instrumental in that victory when we get to the day of play, or before, if they ever decide to respond in Discord. But for some reason, they've been invited to the Big Victory Party. The Big Victory Party is going to have some form of gaming going on at it if they want to try and get involved in it, right? So, we want there to be some sort of, what are the party games, right, that are going to happen. We know that, and then the thing that's going to happen, the inciting incident, after they kind of all get to know each other and maybe have a little bit of fun at the party, is going to be that suddenly everything goes black. The whole, it goes magically dark, so dark vision can't see through it or anything like that. And when the lights come back on, all the loot is gone, including Queen Grubbly Bits' circlet. And so Queen Grubbly Bits knowing that Shrieky, thank you for the follow, knowing that Queen Grubblybits holds her power only because of that amazing circlet, and they just got all this sweet, sweet war loot from the hobgoblins, she's going to send this clutch of kobolds after the gold. They're going to kind of walk outside and see that the two kobolds who were kind of guarding the main entrance to their cave holdings had a sleep ray used on them. And so this should give them an idea, and that they saw a gold floating eyeball with extra eyeballs come in with like two hobgoblin-y looking people. Right, two hobgoblin-y looking people. But they fell asleep before they could figure out what would happen. And then they'll have to kind of track them, right? And so here we want to have like two more incidents of some sort that happen on their way to the final step, because I imagine this initial part will take probably 30 minutes. Welcome to Joe Hio. Thank you for the follow. I imagine this will probably take 30 minutes if I were to time it out right. And then the end of this, because I don't know what the middle looks like at all yet, the end of this is... I love Bisonic. I love Kobold Ate My Baby, and I was have you ever played Kobold Stole My Baby or Kobold Ate My Baby? Oh, it's Dingoes Ate My Baby, but I think it's Kobold Stole My Baby, right? Is the name of the game. And I was looking for a copy of it to get some inspiration, but I used to own one, but I can't seem to find it anywhere. So I may, if I can find a copy of it somewhere, I will add that in, because there's some gold in there for all things Kobold related. But I know where this ends as well, right? It ends in this kind of old, dilapidated house that's being held by this Gouth here. Boink. Who's a baby beholder. Dude! Oh yeah, get me a picture of the charts, please. That would be amazing. He's also enslaved some kobolds who will be in a kitchen. There are a number of traps that I want to have, but one of the defining features of this, other than that the top story is collapsed, is that it has air vents, right? It's got, like, for some reason in this mythical, fantastical world, there are vents for people to crawl through. So I wanted to give the kobolds the opportunity to come at this more heisty or more smashy, depending on what they wanted to do. There will be, because he's a Gouth and he comes from Beholder stock, there will obviously be like pitfall traps up in the air vents, along with some gazers, which you can see in the background, because he's still a paranoid maniac. So I'm interested to see if they choose to take the air vents, how they tackle, like, oh my god, there's like a little eye ray beast up here, and we're all lined up in a row, so like only one person can get up front, and like how do we, and like how they kind of trip all over each other with that sort of like very confined space. And then inside on the ground floor itself, and that's what the blue lines you can see here on the stream are. And I'm going to populate this and make it look like a real map. This is just my sketch of it, but the other couple of things going on in here that are kind of defining features of this very minor mini dungeon-y thing is bedrooms, of course, 3 sets of hobgoblin patrols. In here are going to be a bunch of drunk hobgoblins. I'm wondering if they sneak in and they see like they're playing cards or a couple of them are asleep. I want to give them opportunities to interact and fuck with as much as possible the denizens of this kind of dilapidated old manor house. Here are some goblins who were just kind of minor characters, but they're all standing around this essentially giant, elaborate aluminum foil and cardboard construction that they are worshipping. There's a goblin captain with them who is singing the praises of this new god for the goblins. And so it's just kind of this weird side moment that I wanted to add in, where there are these like weird cultist goblins who don't worship the normal goblin god who's Goobly something, Grubly, I can't remember his name, but I wanted to have like just a weird moment where like if they're crawling through above, they can like hear down and like see through, and there's like this weird like essentially aluminum foil and cardboard, like, massive altar that takes up most of the room that these goblins are worshipping around, and see kind of if they decide to screw with them, because they're kobolds, and I hope the players are going to take this, and I'll remind them that this is supposed to be kind of a more comedic game, and so to get them in that mood of being like, this is fucking weird, right? And then there's the final boss area, which is a Gouth and two, I think these are actually from, I think that are the Hobgoblin Iron Shadows from the Kobold Press Monsters book, or are they from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes? But wherever they're from Volos. Okay. But I wanted to add a little bit of something different and interesting in terms of a combat. And so clearly a Gouth by itself is going to be a threat, but he's not a deadly threat like big boss battle to 5 level 5 characters at the end of this thing. So there's two things going on in this room. The first is the Gouth encounter with the two monks, which I think should be fun to fight against in general. And then there is a trap. That trap is a portal trap. What that trap does is if anybody steps in one of the corners or in one of those central 4 squares and does not make a DC 18 dexterity saving throw, they are immediately teleported into this open portal that's at the top and bottom of the room, and they just start going through it, because I think that's kind of funny. And that's the one big thing I want to try and put in here is some weirder traps, right? I don't think any of the encounters with the hobgoblins is going to take up too much gaming time, but I want to have some like memorable trap moments in here as part of this, because it's heisty, right? And there's got to be something other than like I stab some guards. So if anybody has any great ideas for traps, right now the two other traps you see here and here are simply pitfall traps. They're up in the, hey Mercury, what's going on? They're up in the air ducts, so if the kobolds choose to like crawl through the air ducts, once they hit one of those two main trunks, if they make it to one of those squares, they could fall through and run into one of the hobgoblin patrols, and there's a no shit moment, which I thought might be fun. So that's, yeah, the portal is kind of like an infinite reverse gravity pitfall, right? So instead of hitting the trap and just going up, this continuously throws you through the two portals. Although I could actually use a reverse gravity pitfall to like presage the infinite portal that's coming later. So I'm going to do that. That's actually a great idea by Sonic. So we will put that in here. This will be a reverse gravity pitfall, and we will put it. Obviously, the hobgoblins know where all of these traps are, and what we'll do is we'll set it up so it's like this. Like this. Right. And so this is also going to be like a DC 15 dex save. DC. Because I want the big... I kind of want the big trap to pop off, but I feel like a bunch of kobolds could maybe get past that. And so that's going to be a reverse gravity pitfall, so let's put that there. So they'll just go and fling up like 20 feet. And so how do they solve getting out of that? I think is pretty hilarious. So thank you. That's a great one. And then, here's the big question, right? So I kind of have an idea for what the end is, and I have an idea for what the beginning is, right? The big party, they could play some party games if they want. Everything goes black. They don't know it, but a Gouth and the two Iron Shadows sneak in, steal the helmet, steal the, like, crown, for lack of a better term, from Snicked Grubblybits, the queen of these kobolds, along with a ton of their loot, and then she orders them to go find it. So there needs to be kind of two encounters that define what's going to happen. Oh, okay. Gino, if you can find it, please feel free to link it to me. But what I need to figure out now, really, are what are the two encounters between... Oh, and hi! Hi! What are the two encounters between the inciting incident and the final manor place, right? A couple of things. I wanted to kind of do something with sheep, but I don't really know what that is yet, right? Like, maybe they run into, like, some were-sheep or something. As they're, like, moving through a dark field, they hear a flock of sheep up ahead. And there's a sheep herder with them who is actually a were-sheep. And they're within that sheep, are more sheep, and so the incident could even be called like Sheep Among Sheep or something like that, something ridiculous. And then I just have a bespoke bad guy who's probably on like the were-rat level of, let's see, were-rat. What do you look like, were-rat? I mean, not what do you look like, but what do you look like? So they multi-attack. So yeah, they're challenge rating 2. 33 hit points. Shape changer down, multi-attack. What do? They, oh, yeah, actually, I feel like having some of the characters turn into were-sheep accidentally by getting were-sheep lycanthropy would actually be pretty hilarious, right? Like, so is this like a were-sheep encounter where so they track them, and obviously like the shadows right, the shadows leave tracks, so only 2 tracks leading away. That'll be like a nature check or a survival check. And then they find incident 1. And hey, Merc, how you doing, man? Incident 1 is going to be like sheep amongst sheep, right? Where there's going to be, what did we say? Like a shepherd. It's going to still be nighttime, but like there's a shepherd out with sheep. I'm good. Yeah, I wanted to try and get some of this written tonight, and I thought maybe stream it and see what happens. I thought that might be fun. So there's going to be a shepherd out with her sheep. Shepherd is really were-sheep. Is really a were-sheep. And then there's maybe in the herd, there would be like, so for level 5, like 3 more. They have multi-attack, and so you want to think about action economy. At level 5, if we have any fighters, some of our folks are gonna have 2 attacks. So I feel like 4 total were-sheep, if they essentially have the stats of a were-rat. Except instead of bite, they're gonna have hoof, and like, so they're not gonna have a short sword. What they're gonna be able to do instead, and you know what, they would have bite because that's how they transmute sheep lycanthropy, right? So they would have the bite attack, so they'd still have the were-rat bite, the were-sheep bite. But instead of the short sword, they'd have a hoof attack, right? In their hybrid form. And then they maybe have actually, what if they threw sheep pies? Lycanthro sheep. Where you? I'm liking it more the more we talk about it. Yeah. So we have like were sheep with hoof attack and then bite. Do they throw? Yeah, that's like cows for cow pies, right? So they have like a hoof attack, and then maybe in their human form, because all of their stuff transmits with them as they go between shapes, maybe they have a hand crossbow and are still able to like hit with a shocking grasp. Yeah, oh my god. So you could do something like in their hybrid form, they can make an electrical attack that's it's a touch attack where they like rub their thing and then yeah. So like they do what is that called when you like boots something? It's the somebody help me out. It's friction, right? Not friction. Whatever. It's going to be like a friction wool attack. Static charge. That's right. Thank you. Static charge attack in hybrid form, and we'll just make sure that when they turn into something, they turn hybrid, right? So we don't even have to worry about their human form. So what they have is the were-sheep bite, the hoof attack. They have multi-attack. And then, this comes down here. They took note of that. Oops, static charge. Yay, notes, right? So this is, the nighttime shepherd out with sheep. Shepherd is really a were-sheep. There's going to be 3 more were-sheep in the flock. 3 times were-sheep in the flock. And so this will be funny, because then if they try to sneak through the were-sheep, they'll be in difficult sheep terrain when in the fight, right? They'll be in difficult sheep terrain in the fight. And it's a one-shot, so I hope people expect the funnel, right? It's not like there's a whole world outside of this. It's very much fantasy land, and there's, like, this much of it. And as long as they're following the tracks, they'll make their way to the flock of sheep. And I think that's kind of good, right? Because I think interaction plus combat in the interaction plus combat in that second incident will probably take 45 minutes, right? Because they'll figure out if they want to go around, they might be hungry, they might, so we're going to hope that takes about 45 minutes, right, for the combat to go down. And so we're already up to 75 minutes because I can do math. Okay. So that's incident number 1. Incident number 2, I wanted to have them encounter some humans in some way, man. I literally read man off chat at the same time as I said that, and it interspersed itself into my sentence. Incident 2, what do we think? I kind of, like, the were-sheep is weird, but what if they... This one, like, I had an idea for the first one, right? But the second one, I was thinking about, like, some sort of Romany caravan a la Barovia, and maybe they get, like, a tarot reading, or something like they find, like, children trapped in a house, like something a little bit more mythic in terms of its feel, where it's still weird, but it's not outright ludicrous like Were-Sheep, right? Because Were-Sheep is fucking hilarious, and I'm glad that we wrote that up. But for the second one, I want it to be more weird, I think, than, like, straight up funny. And so I'm not really sure what to hit with on this one yet. Because essentially, like, so what's a good heist? Not like Cthulhu weird, not like the darkness is coming to eat us, right? Because it's a lighthearted, the comedic tone set between the fact that, there's going to be, and so the second one I want to be, because I don't want them to, like, be pulled into the darkness, and I think it's hilarious. Like, it's hilarious if someone becomes a were-sheep, right? They're a kobold hybrid were-sheep. That's hilarious, right? I don't think we need the great tentacled doom, he of the darkness who shall not be named. I think we need, like, more fantasy weird as opposed to, like, gaslight Victorian terror weird, right? And so I've had a block on this second one, and so I'm totally open to ideas, as long as they're within that kind of fantasy milieu, and live on the weird side of things. Oh, nobody's going to be immune to non-magical attacks. Oh, you're talking about the were-rats? I probably, because it's a one-shot, I'm going to ignore things like immune to non-magical attacks, because people aren't min-maxing their characters. They're not thinking about what sort of magical items they have, really. They're there to have a fun little romp, right? So in the, like, fantasy heisty world, what's some sort of encounter you could have while tracking your quarry? No. This is a hard one. So let's play around with this like strange forest creature idea, right? Like not Cthulhu necessarily, but some unknown foresty weirdness, right? Like what are some interesting fey creatures? What's some sort of like straight up weird fey thing that could happen? Blink dogs are interesting. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a combat encounter, right? Like, it could end up in... Ents are interesting, because Ents play on the, like, disparity in size, as kobolds are small creatures, I think, and probably pretty quick-thinking and talking as opposed to Ents who aren't. So that's an interesting idea. What's a quickling? Is that a thing I know about? Oh, yeah, okay, let's take a look. Quicklings. Oh, quicklings rocket through haunting twisted forests where the unseelie Fae hold sway, both in the Feywild and in the world, racing faster than the eye can track. Each appears as little more than a blurry wavering in the air. A quickling is a small, slender Fae similar to a miniature elf with sharp feral features, live fast, die young. Quicklings owe their existence and their plight to the Queen of Air and Darkness. So, I actually like this quickling idea. Hey, Brendonius, what's going on, man? Because... A, it's got the mischievous thing going on, and B, they could ask for some sort of toll, right, to pass. So maybe this is a, like, quicklings bar the way. I think quicklings are neat, and I don't see them. They could recruit the quicklings, but I think the quicklings have an ulterior motive. I think anyone who passes through their territory needs to give them something. Right? And I feel like quicklings talk like this. If I'm a quickling, I feel like this is what my quickling voice would be. Yes? Like, this is very much a quickling talk. It would be ironic if they talk slowly, but I feel like that's a little too on the nose sort of ironic. But yeah, let's say there's like a clutch of quicklings, right? A clutch of quicklings. Quicklings own a stretch of forest and require payment. I think because they're Fae, money's not going to matter to them, right? Like, they're going to want something more meaningful than that. Clutch of quicklings. Everyone is just so boring. No, I haven't read that, actually. I've been meaning to read more Spider-Man recently because I really like the video game, and it reminded me how much I love the Spideyverse. Yeah, I mean, actually, they could think that kobolds are incredibly stupid and talk to them like they're morons, right? What's their CR? In case their CR 1, AC 16. Attack rolls have disadvantage. Yeah, neat. Evasion, dex saving throw, right? 3 dagger attacks. +8 to hit. So they're definitely going to land hits. They're probably going to hit twice around each. And they attack 3 times. They're actually pretty badass. So, yeah, so, like, maybe they do. Maybe they require payment of something, right? Which we'll figure out before letting anyone pass. Could it be as simple as each one of them telling a story? Where's their speed? Oh, yeah, speed 120. What? Right, like... See, I actually think I would, with a speed of 120, I would actually make them immune to, that's actually kind of where I was going, but I want there to be a more insidious twist to it, right? Like, what's your darkest story? What's the worst thing that ever happened to you as a kobold? Or, like, because I'm gonna view them, it's the Queen of Air, right? Yeah. They owe their plight to the Queen of Air and Darkness, the dread ruler of the Gloaming Court. Once race of lazy and egotistical fae, the creatures would become the quicklings, were late in answering the Queen's summon one time too many to hasten their pace and teach them to mind her well. Queen shrank their stature. So, yeah. So I think, instead of it just being a story, like, what if it's the darkest story from their past, right? Right, like, what if it's, like, what's the most... Is it too heavy to do the most traumatic thing? Is that too heavy, especially for a charity stream, to be like, what's the most traumatic thing that happened to your Kobold character, right? Because, I want it to be something that feeds the Feywild, right? And so it doesn't need to be like the most traumatic thing that happened to you, but it needs to be like maybe the most embarrassing, right? Because I know the group of role players who are going to be playing in this, and they're all pretty good at it. Have a good night, Mercury. Thank you for hanging out for a minute. First, and then I'll approach you if you're interested. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Please do. So yeah, maybe it's their most embarrassing story. Yeah. Most embarrassing story? Or like, maybe they have to give them... And what they're really doing is giving them emotional energy, right? It's like they're feeding off of... Oh, wait a minute. There's... By Sonic. There is a group of logging humans in the forest in order to pass the quicklings... the kobolds must pull a prank on, and it must be a prank, must pull a prank on the loggers that results in at least one death. What do you guys think? So, being of the Dark Fae, and being protectors of this specific piece of wood, the group of quicklings, before they let... And, I mean, we could say there's, like, a huge number of quicklings, right? Like, so we can make it an encounter they don't want to have. They could probably fight, like, maybe enough that they could possibly fight their way through it, but it would require a long rest. It would require use of their resources to be able to, like, push through and finish the adventure, which is not something you want to have happen in a one-shot, I think. But yeah, so what if there's a group of loggers somewhere off to the west, and in order to pass, the kobolds must pull a prank on the loggers that results in at least one death. And I think I want to leave it as vague as at least one death, so if one of the kobolds dies... then, well, they'd probably bring them back just to keep the thing going. But I think that's it, right? So then what we'll need is like a logging camp. Maybe. Here's the thing, we have 3.5 hours, right? And the last hour is probably what it's going to take to move through the mini... Yeah, so it's probably going to take about an hour to move through this here, right? Because they're either going to sneak through, and there's some pit traps and stuff for them to fall through, and they're going to have a couple of gazer encounters along the way, or they're going to fight their way through, run into a couple of traps, have 2 to 3 encounters on the way up to the boss, and then try and take out the boss, right? So, like, I feel like the quicklings thing, because it's not combat related, can kind of be as long as I need it to be, right? I can either, like, roleplay it out and have them, like, let's go into, like, detail on how you guys set up this thing. Oh my god, here's a complication, here's a complication. Or I can, if we're running short on time, I can make it a skill challenge, right? And just be like, everyone tell me how you help set up this prank on this logging camp, right? And then you tell me what your skill is that you want to use, and then everyone makes your skill roll, and then I narrate the outcome, right? So I feel like this is pretty fungible in terms of time. Because it could end in a combat, although the combat isn't exactly a prank. With the loggers who are just going to be like commoners with saws, essentially. But I think that's right. Right? Is they're on their way. Two kind of weird ass things happen. And then they make it to the boss. Do we want to add a third one just in case? Like, it may never get used, but, like, on their way to the thingy. Like, just a random third thing to happen. And this actually adds in the human component I wanted to show that they're in a bigger world, too. Like, but I love this idea of, like... Because I think it adds the darkness that... Captain J. Cross. Wait, are my kobolds literally watching this right now? Because, oh, nice! Okay. If my kobolds are watching this, they're cheaters, and I don't want them to watch. Okay, no, they're not. Alright. Oh, I love that. Yeah, no, I love what they're saying in there. They're all, like, Southern. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love that. Okay, that's sweet. They can totally talk about that stuff, as long as... If you're in here right now... Yeah, good. And you're one of my players for the noon to 4 p.m. You're fired! No, I love you. It's fine. It's a one-shot, and we're going to have fun either way. So, I think I want to add a third incident. They're not actually... D&D has a specific term for what they are, but like a third plot point. And so, just in case, right? Because I think it's better to have, like, more fodder in case stuff goes weird or they bypass something, right? It's better to have a few things. And if I really like the way this goes, I'm going to write it up and publish it on DriveThruRPG. And thank you guys for whoever's, like, helped tonight. Thank you guys for helping me write this, because it's actually that whole quickling thing, and then the static charge attack, and the dark way for the prank to be made, which is Captain Cross. That actually came from you, because I wanted to, like, because they're dark fae, right? I wanted to kind of capture that weirdness of, like, something other. I think that's right. And I think that feels right in this sort of scenario where everyone's kind of alien, but I didn't want it to be so dark as to be like, flying tentacles, right? Because as fun as that is, I think that's a different game. Let's see. So Incident 3, they're moving through the woods, and they find these quicklings. They go off to the logging camp, and they pull some sort of prank on the loggers. And then they come back. The quicklings are happy. They're like, thank you. We needed to teach them a lesson. They're a bunch of poopy heads. You have done well. You may pass through our forest. They make their way out of the forest and into the ruins of a city. A city long dead. That's where this manor house is, right? They make their way into... It's probably a small town, right? They make their way into the ruins of a small town. There, at the other end, is a manor house with lights shining through the windows on the first floor, as the floors above seem to have been removed. Okay. So, between leaving the forest and making their way into this small town, or perhaps even in this small town, some third thing could happen. Some third thing. I'm not sure what that is yet. But so far, we've got kind of weird dark fae trickery. We've got kind of ludicrous sheep fun times. And then... Oh, hey, I got that. Thank you, by Sonic. I saw the thingy. I do use the home brewery, indeed. I have a couple of things on there, actually. Just a very few little bits. There we go. Aha! Alright. So I am going to draw some inspiration from Kobold Eat My Babies. Let's see. Kobold senses, tastes like chicken, troll blood, bouncy, blah, blah, blah. I'm looking for those tables. That is your... Wow, this is a very updated version of the game. The version of Kobold Ate My Babies I got was in a... so originally, it's cheap-ass games, I think, right? Originally, when they made these, they were in these, like, little white envelopes that were black and white printed and had, like, a black and white front. And Kobold Ate My Baby, which is, like, a black and white, like, 15-page pamphlet. And it was amazing. There was also Ninja Delivery, I think is what it was called, or something like that, where you role-played ninjas trying to make deliveries, and we're getting stopped by other ninjas. Like, everything about... it's not cheap-ass games, what is it? It's, it's now written by somebody else entirely, 9th level. Who is this? I just kind of want to know now. Kobold maybe Dork Storm Press. Oh, Dork Storm must have ate them at some point. King I don't remember. It used Ninja Burger. That's what it was. Ninja Burger. Ninja Burger was amazing. I loved all of those games back in the day. So I used to go to Gen Con or Origins every year in like the late 90s, early 2000s, and these are the games we would play, right? These like little, like, they were like $5 to $10 at the time, and there was like My Big Invention or like there was like this crazy invention game and stuff like that. They were amazing little games that they just put together. You played them for an hour, you had an amazing time, you were drinking beer over them, and it was awesome. All right. I think I'm almost to the charts, which may help us with some... Kobold spin... Nope. Alright, I might have to give this some more of a read before I want to use something specifically from it. Unless there's more here in the back. So we've got... here we go. Yeah, nice. Alright. So what if they have to cross through a farm? What about that? What if they have to cross a farm? Yeah. Well, the farm idea might be interesting, right? It might be a little too mundane, but it might be something there. Because you go from the completely weird... Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, right? So, like, there's a chicken coop full of chickens. You can smell fresh baked bread coming from the inside. There's, like, a blueberry bush over here. I thought about pie on a windowsill, but that seems too easy, because all I'd have to do is go up and grab it, and so, like... I hate to say canonically it makes sense. Like, it makes sense within the oeuvre, but I don't think it makes sense in terms of, like, a interesting game design, because all they have to do is, I make a stealth check. I thought about Hansel and Gretel, actually, right? Because, like, you could totally do, like a gingerbread house or something that they come upon, and then there are two kids trapped in there, which to kobolds are just dinner, right? So it's like dinner inside dinner. But how does that play out in terms of a scenario, right? It can't just be, oh, hey, look. Hang on. Hag. What level are hags? Because what it could be... Anna's hag's a little too strong for a quickie. Her hag, which I've actually never... Oh, yeah, because it's from... I'm just looking at different hags. Because I think... Yeah, here we go. We could do a green hag. Oh my god! Yeah, okay. So, it's actually a major illusion, right? Major illusion. There is a house made of the most delicious thing each kobold can think of, right? So no matter who sees it, no matter what it is, there's a charm on it. And from the inside are like the most like unquenchably delicious smells, right? Like just mouth-watering smells, right? Coming from inside. Oh, I hope so, right? But it's actually just a rundown old shack with a green hag inside, right? Rundown old shack. With a green hag inside. But that green hag to them is gonna look like the arch matron Kobold, right? Like she's gonna look like the mother of all kobolds. But she looks like the mother of all kobolds. Until they sit down and start eating. And when they start eating, if they choose to start eating, right? And if they start eating, they look down at their bowls and realize they've been chewing on their own hands. Yeah? Yeah? Yeah. But that immediately breaks them out of the illusion. Because kobolds don't like to eat kobolds. Kobolds aren't naturally cannibalistic. And so what we'll say that is they each take like a d4 of damage. Oh my god, yeah, if they're sitting around at a circular table, well, is it a bunch of selfish kobolds? So like, I think about that, right? And a bunch of selfish kobolds, are they going to care as much that they were eating someone else as if they were eating their own hands? I feel like it's more terrifying to realizing that that bowl of delicious food was actually their own hand, right? And they're just like... and they don't realize it until like they've ripped a finger off or something. I can see that adding to the party tension, where it's like, oh my god, you were eating my hand, that's fucking weird. But I'm not looking for too much, because I could also see kobolds getting pissed at each other if they're eating someone else's hand. Just in terms of like, and I don't know that they're going to play the kobolds like that, right? But yes, I think it's going to be some sort of chewing on their own hands, or maybe the person next to theirs, right? Person next to their hands. Right. And then they realize at that point, it's just hands. It's just kobold fingers, right? Like, at that point they realize, right? It's actually a rundown shack. A rundown shack. And there's a spoopy green hag. Let's look at that green hag output again. Where are you at, buddy? With, do they hang out with anyone? Because I feel like the green hag by itself. Maybe there's two of them? No, I mean, AC 17, 82 hit points. That's going to be with, like, yeah. I think actually one of them is just fine. I may, depending on how the fight goes, I may fudge the hit points a little bit to either make it go slower or longer. But the big thing is, like, the fight, I think, is less important than the holy shit moment that happens beforehand. Yes. Yeah, I think that's right. Oh, so maybe it drops a net on them. Right? Or maybe beforehand, huh? Yeah, maybe, like, when they realize it, there's a trap involved where she, like, drops a net on top of the table that they didn't see because of the major illusion. We realize actually run down shack and there's a spoopy green hag, but suddenly a large net starts to raise up from the ground, because that actually, like, makes more sense. From the ground, catching table, chairs, and all, right? In order to capture the kobolds. Right. At which point, obviously, combat has ensued, right? I mean, maybe we'll find some more creative way out of it. But that actually gives us three really interesting, I think three really kind of neato Pete's ways to... Yeah, they could also try to book it, right? Like, none of these... I think none of these three require immediate combat, right? Like, they could sneak their way past the Weresheep. They could maybe talk their way out of the Quicklings, right? And there probably won't be combat with the Quicklings anyways. There may be combat with the Loggers. But if I feel like it's going to be harder for them to get away from the Green Hag, right? Because she got some gross spells. I mean, they're level 5. No, I'm going to say it's a major illusion. And it's an enchantment on the house, right? So would require a similar level of power in order to disenchant it, or in order to see through it. I might give them one, but because, like, I think in one-shots you need a little fiat, right? You're like, this is what it is until it's not this thing, because this story is a single contained piece, right? Having the illusion just be the illusion until such time as it no longer is makes it a story beat as opposed to something, that is like a mechanical part of the game. And I think I'm more into it being a story beat than I am having it be like mechanically defeatable. Yeah. Because I think it's neat, right? And I want this to be an experience for the players, where they're going to have choices. Like, they have choices pretty much throughout. Even within this, like, they could just be like, I don't want to go there. Although I probably will have some sort of whiz save. Let's actually mark that for them not to, like, be drawn directly towards it, right? So it's going to be like a whiz save, right? To not be drawn towards the food. And I'll only institute that because I feel like most of the kobolds are going to be like, fuck yes, that's awesome, let's go there, right? I have done that before, by the way. I have, it's the roll it is literally the roll to disbelieve, right? I am smarter than that thing. But I've actually done in games before where I will have an DC of N, where N is the highest roll. Because I feel like sometimes, I feel like player agency lives on kind of a knife's edge, right? Where I'm kind of philosophizing at this point, but I think player agency is incredibly critical within D&D. Players should be allowed to make meaningful choices, and die roll should have meaningful outcomes. But sometimes that meaningful outcome isn't going to be that there is a DC 16 dexterity saving throw. It's going to be who is the person who is fast enough to get away from the trap, right? And that's when I'll have like the DC of N, where N is the highest person makes it and everyone else fails. And if two people make it and they tie, that's totally cool, right? But the idea is to give the outcome a level of certainty within and I'll only do it for like major story plot points. I won't do it for like everyday traps and things like that. But I will certainly do it for like a major plot point, where they have decided themselves over the course of 8 to 12 adventures or 8 to 12 sessions into a situation. Things in that situation are going to happen, and they're going to have to figure out how to navigate around them. Yeah. It's like there's I almost never roll any of my dice on screen on Roll20. I have a die tray that I use, but I incredibly rarely, I would say incredibly rarely, fudge dice. I can maybe once every 10 sessions. And then it has to be dramatically appropriate, right? Like, I think it's a good thing to do when you've had a group of characters around for a long time and there are expectations set for the way things kind of go, to either create uncertainty or in a place where they should obviously have won and somebody rolled something poopy. And at that point, you're like, why did I make the roll anyways? I don't know. Because I like to roll dice. Shut up. But yeah. So we just put together 3 really interesting things that could happen that I never would have put together unless I talked to you guys. So that's awesome. And so all I need to do now is create maps for these because I'm a map nerd, and I can do that over the week. I'd love to be able to find like a gingerbread house map or something, with like gumdrop tables and, you know, all that sort of stuff. Because even though they're all going to see it as like differently amazing, having that like visual touchstone I think is important, of like, oh, this is obviously out of the ordinary, and would look hilarious on stream. So yeah, we've got Incident 1, Sheep Amongst Sheep. Will you be using a leverage RPG plot point or Blades in the Dark mechanic? I think that's adding too much, right? I think for a one-shot, putting in too many unexpected mechanics kind of just adds to the level of confusion, when what you want is a smooth flowing narrative that is fun for the players, right? And so I'm not loath to do it, but I would only do that in a situation in which I knew everyone had. Have a good night, Judo. Go watch the rest of Dragon Dark Days. It was hilarious and you'll love it. I'm actually going to wrap up here in a minute because you all have helped me way more quickly than I thought we were. The last thing I wanted to kind of talk about was traps. So we know we've got, once we get to the final like the final little manor house here, right, which I do expect to take about an hour to get through, right? I feel like I want there to be, like, there is a paranoid Gouth who is split off from his pod of other Gouths. I don't know. Did your sub-labs? Did it? It looks like it did. Dick. No, I totally don't care. You know I love you. So there are... But, like, imagine a Gouth is, like, an incredibly vulnerable baby beholder, right? They're not actually juvenile beholders, but they have that same level of pain. No, don't worry about it. I love you. Don't apologize. You can only give what you can give, and I love you for when you can, and I'm not going to judge you for when you can't. But they're still incredibly paranoid, and they're even more paranoid because they're lower on the totem pole than actual beholders. Yeah, so how would they trick out their little lair? In all reality, they probably wouldn't be on... Oh, here we go. What is this? Instagram. Okay, bye, Judo. The door's exterior face is covered with transparent, sticky substance that will go unnoticed until it is touched. If you put some ear, arm, or foot on the door, we'll find it firmly stuck. I like that. I do like that, actually. So what I may do then is put a set of double doors here, like sliding double doors. Yeah, we'll actually do polygon. I like that. That's really fun. Here, right? So this will be like a pair of sliding double doors, and these will be a sticky door trap. I think that's really funny. Yeah, the sticky door trap. Cool. Oh, no. Okay. Boink. But we also want those doors to be on the map level, or on the totem layer for now. Alright. So we know, I like that actually. Sticky door trap is a lot of fun. I'm stuck on it. Yeah. Requires maybe a strength test. So we've got, let's bring up the notes here real quick. So we know what traps we have, right? There's the portal trap. Obviously my first note for this game was there's got to be a crawl space. Check. Alright. The manor. So we know that there's a crawl space with pitfall traps and gazers. We know that there will be a mimic. Do we want a mimic? Let me look at mimics real quick. What's mimics DC? It's adding combat encounters adds more time than traps, right? So like, I'm not inherently opposed to mimics. I want to make sure that I'm not asking them to bite off more than they can chew. Challenge rating 2. Oh, okay. But now I kind of want to add a mimic, because we also have the Mimic Knights as one of our shows, right? So, but I like the sticky door trap. I think that's funny, which is enough for me to like anything. And then let's see. This is Epic Gym. Let's go away. Fuck off. Let's take a look. What else does he have? This is a... Oh, okay. So we've got glass door. No. What is this? This is a bridge too far. I'll bring this over here. Devious trap is called a bridge too far. A door lets into a vast room divided by a pit of fire. What is this? Never trust a drawer. Any dungeon master knows if you put furniture in a room, someone in the adventure party is going to try and loot it. That might be interesting. I like the art that goes along with these. It's all like old school. Like this was from 1985. What is this? This is just this trap is called a slipshod operation. Find a strong wooden door with a sturdy door knob unlocked. The door bears a sign, careful, authorized personnel only. It looks like a good trap. This, of course, will cause adventurers who want nothing more than to go outside. They can fiddle with the lock if they want. And even normal magical means to unlock the door would fail. This will probably just whet their appetites when someone finally gets exasperated enough to try and mess the door and things get really interesting. The floor immediately in front of the door is mounted on rollers. Oh! That's actually really funny. It's a... I don't know that I would turn it into a pit trap, but what I think I would do is I would turn it into a roller floor. Because I love the idea of, like, it's almost like walking on ice, right? Where you're like... which is my way of saying that people are slipping and sliding all over the floor. But I feel like we get one more trap, right? There's going to be one more. And is it a roller floor trap, right? I don't know. I think I might need to chew on that a little bit more. Although that, where'd it go? Did I actually close it because I'm smart? Yeah, okay. Does he have anything else inspiring to me? Yeah, some of these are horrible. I love it. Some of these I'm gonna have to use. But, sticky door. What is this? The sliding sword. A blade that will work perfectly well until it's used to thrust instead of slash. No, that's a little too obvious. I mean, not obvious, but a little too, like, finicky. This one, the cure for the kicker. The rollers could power it on. Maybe. So I like the idea of having an alarm. The thing is, the logical extension of an alarm is everybody rushes to where the alarm went off who is a guard, right? Which turns fighting 2 hobgoblins into fighting 8 hobgoblins, or up to 14 hobgoblins. And that just seems like a lot, right? And that's kind of like, I think if this were, yeah, I mean, if they use it smartly, we could say there's an alarm. Actually, what we could do, because he is still a Gauth, right? We could say that there are alarms here, here, and here, right? And that these are alarm. Alarm. Right. And so, yeah. And so, I mean, as the DM, I'll also have to play it by ear, right? Like, depending on where we are with time, depending on where we're, like, what the characters are feeling, what their playstyle is going to be like in the one-shot. But I feel like having those triggers be there, at least on the map to remind me that they're a possibility, is a good thing. But yeah, I feel like we have constructed a really sturdy outline that I can play off of for this one-shot. This is going to be the charity one-shot that I'm running from noon to 4 p.m. this upcoming Friday, September 28th Eastern, for Trans Lifeline. Trans Lifeline is a charity that provides microgrants to folks going through transition, and provides a crisis text line, or a crisis chat line, staffed by members of the trans community, for members of the trans community. We're sponsored by Devin Rue and Tabletop Loot and Rook and Raven. 8-Bit Forge, which is our community member Channel Logic, gave us some giveaways as well. So Nerdware, which is Maddie's So Maddie Games t-shirt line, is giving us some stuff to give away. Me and Midair, who's a new player on our Friday game, has an Etsy shop, and we've got a walnut dice tray that we're going to be giving away, along with a character journal from them as well, and custom graphics by our graphic designer, Kimages. So we've got a lot of awesome stuff we're going to be giving out. We're also going to have, I just lost it. Friday night from 8 to midnight, we're going to have a special kind of celebrity D&D stream that includes Rudy Woot, who's one of the designers from, he is a D&D game designer, and he is one of the people who wrote Eberron, or the newest version of Eberron, and is one of the co-founders of Maze Arcana with Satine Phoenix. That game will be run by Grant, who you all know as Wise Papa Grant from Twitter, and it should be amazing. So with that, I think we're going to end the stream for the evening. Thank you guys so much for the help tonight. I really appreciate it, and we're going to be out. Bye.